This portion of Spirit of America 92, President Bush Visits Ohio, is being brought to you by Magic Auto Glass and Trim, 622 East Sandusky in Findlay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Misty Langley.
And I'm Mike McKittrick. Thanks for joining us for this very special program.
Saturday, the President of the United States once again came to northwestern Ohio.
Despite the fact President Bush recently visited Tall Timbers Industrial Park, he chose to return for several campaign stops and one very special non-campaign appearance.
For the village of Arlington, for Findlay, and for Bowling Green, last week was a blur of frenzied planning, massive preparation, and adapting to last-minute changes as the President's advance teams rolled into the area with their extremely specialized requirements for security, media coverage, and down to the second timetables.
For TV47, the day began before sunrise as we prepared for live coverage of the centennial celebration in Arlington, and Misty traveled to Marysville to board the presidential train.
That's right. Debbie Homan, our videographer, and I arrived in Marysville quite early Saturday morning with our media credentials and awaited the train's arrival. Now, we weren't the only ones. As you can see, thousands of local and area residents had shown up to greet the President, and particularly Barbara Bush, who has family roots in the community. Mrs. Bush's mother was born, raised, and graduated from high school in Marysville.
Misty, you saw all the crowds gathered for the President's train from Marysville to Kenton, on to Arlington, Findlay, Bowling Green. Was the Marysville gathering a relatively friendly one?
It sure was, Mike, and it was a friendly one because the community feels very close to Barbara Bush because her mother is from there, and the family name there is the Robinsons. So they spoke very highly of Mrs. Bush as well as the President.
It would be hard to determine then if they came to see the President or Mrs. Bush.
That's right, and here we're going to take a look at some of the speeches.
And George Bush changed the world, and today he is its undisputed leader. He won the Cold War, and his leadership is helping America win the jobs war. That's the war we want to win, the jobs war. What a day in Ohio.
Thank you very much. It's really great to be back in Marysville. As many of you know, my precious mother was born and raised here. She was a Robinson, one of Union County's pioneer families. She spoke often about her parents and her life here. I remember my wonderful grandmother Robinson well. We fished together, and she baked the most marvelous homemade breads. My husband, our president, and I believe the next president of the United States of America, George Bush.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. What a great Ohio day. Thank you very, very much. Thank you all for this wonderful welcome to Marysville. And may I salute your great Governor, George Voinovich, who's with us on this train, and thank him for what he's doing for creating jobs in Ohio and jobs across this country through his trip, bringing up these exports. We need to hear more like it. We need more governors like George Voinovich. You know, somebody told me that some of you around here always normally wear a button that says, "Re-elect Barbara Bush as husband." Well, I like that, because you see, I think we have the best First Lady in the entire world. Okay, God bless you all, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very, very much. Thank you all. You're right, sir.
Well, it would seem to be a very enthusiastic start for the President and the First Lady, Misty.
It was very enthusiastic, and he gave a wonderful speech, as you just heard. And that last clip showed Barbara Bush pointing to someone in the crowd, and I heard her lean over to her husband and say, "George, there's a cousin of mine. There's a Robinson. That's the name of her family." So it was just real interesting to see how she reacted with the crowd, and they felt so warm and friendly to her.
I noticed when she was introduced, she tried to get, obviously, the crowd to quiet down, and then finally put each hand up by her mouth and made a sudden sweeping motion to each side with each arm. What happened when she did that?
Well, what do you think, Mike? The crowd just went silent. It was just like if your grandmother told you, "Now come on, we're going to quiet down now," and she just had control of that crowd. It was just amazing. They saw her arms, and she was like, "We're ready to go," and that's exactly what happened.
As we were watching the video, you and Deb were preparing, not really preparing because it was not quite time to prepare to get on the train, but what were your thoughts at that time? You had to be particularly excited.
I was very excited. I was anticipating what was this train ride going to be like. What would it bring? What kind of memories? And we got on the train, and we sat, I think, the third car back. But the President and Mrs. Bush were on the last train. I think the next clip we're going to look at is as the train left Marysville and went through Kenton on its way to Arlington. They were on the back of the train, and the crowd at Kenton was very large, and it was just amazing to see. Now, TV47's videographer Debbie Hellman did make it to the back of the train, which is very exciting, and she stood right next to the President and Mrs. Bush as she shot them waving to the crowd. And it's amazing video, and you can see them interacting just as husband and wife and talking to the crowd. So I think that's right. Next, we'll be seeing that.
All right. Well, the President has now finished his speech. Mrs. Bush has finished her address to the crowd. Everyone is ready to get on the train, and here we go. We're on our train ride.
You're going to go through the Hancock County also, where Findlay's located.
Great. We go west of Findlay, I think. Don't we?
Yeah.
Look at how long this train. I didn't see the entry bar.
No wonder
It's a
it
long
takes so
train.
long to get down
Got a
here.
few over here.
On this side? Yeah, here's a handful of big folks. How are you, sir? Good to see you all. Thanks for the welcome to Kenton. Beautiful day.
First cat that's come to see us.
First cat we've seen. Good to see you. There's some guys here. Hey, you guys. Good to see you all. Good luck to you. Thank you, sir. What a beautiful Ohio day.
Little bay window in it.
More guys. Any on that side?
That's,
There we go. Hey, fellas.
2,000 maybe.
What a day. Just great. Go Indians. We'll see you.
So the big crowd's coming up on the other side.
Excuse me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you've got a large crowd over here.
This side, I will get out. See you, sir. Hi.
How are you? We need your help.
Good to see y'all. How you? Oh, here's a bunch here. Big, tremendous crowd. How you kids? Good to see you. Here, Barbara, look at this. Barbara, really?
I don't know which way to go.
over here.
We have, look here, Papa.
Hi, hey, look at that guy. Good to see you all. Thanks, sir.
So sweet.
It's wonderful.
That was absolutely wonderful video from Debbie Homan. It's just so neat to see the President and Mrs. Bush so up close. You don't see that. You cannot see that anywhere. But that was just exciting to see. What did you think about that, Mike?
That was incredible. I was sitting there watching that, feeling as if I were on the platform. And I can tell you this. Had I been the one operating the camera, that camera would not have been nearly as steady because my thoughts would have been so much on the fact I am within inches, literally, of the President of the United States and the First Lady. Amazing video.
That's what Debbie felt, I'm sure, and she talked about that. But while we were on the train capturing those up-close looks of the President and his wife, you were busy in Arlington and speaking to some people. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, we had an opportunity as we waited for the President to talk with a number of people, including a number of very important Republican officials and people who were involved in security. Well, just a lot of people. As a matter of fact, let's take a look right now and listen in.
Ralph Russo, the chairman of the Hancock County Republican Party. Ralph, has it surprised you that the president has chosen to come to northwestern Ohio twice in such a short time?
Well, it certainly is a surprise, but it's quite a pleasant surprise. However, considering the warm welcome he received here in Hancock County only about 4 weeks ago, I guess maybe it shouldn't be a surprise.
Ralph, right now, the president is behind in the polls. He has been for quite some time as a member of the Republican Party, a leading member of the Republican Party. How do you look at that?
I think the president has a real challenge ahead of him. He knows it, but he's been there before. He's a seasoned veteran. I see him as really making a turnabout here in the last few weeks of the campaign.
He has chosen northwestern Ohio twice. Do you think now, as the campaign grows more toward election, that he will start going to bigger cities and more Democratic strongholds?
I think he's going to have to broaden his base, so you will probably find that happening, Mike.
Ralph, as the chairman of the Republican Party, how much effect will the presidential election have on our local election? A great deal, maybe a little, or somewhere in between?
I would think that our Republican candidates locally will do well irrespective of the presidential outcome simply because we are such a strong Republican community. So I don't see it having a tremendous effect, Mike.
Ralph, the last time the president was here, you were involved all week long in the planning. You had a great deal of running around to do it. How does it feel just to come out here as a spectator?
It's nice. The village of Arlington, the Arlington school people have done a tremendous job. They've done it all on their own with a lot of help from the presidential advance team, but they've done a tremendous job, and I'm really enjoying just being here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
The auditor of Hancock County, Tony Arretti. Tony, are you surprised that the president has chosen to come back to northwestern Ohio so soon after his last visit?
Not really, Mike. I guess maybe the fact that it's only been a month ago that he was here, but Ohio, Michigan, Illinois are obviously in the Midwest are three very, very important states for him. And so I think they're going to concentrate a lot of time in this area.
A huge crowd on hand here at Arlington. Should be an enthusiastic crowd. That will have to pump up the president's morale, if nothing else.
That's for sure. A couple of weeks ago, the vice president got a pretty rude homecoming down in Ravenna, Ohio. So it'll be nice for them. They have a big political rally in Marysville, big political rally in Bowling Green. This is just a good old-fashioned picnic.
Tony is someone who has been around the political area with as much intensity and expertise as you. Ross Perot, in, out, in, you don't know where he is at the moment. How much effect is he going to have on this campaign of both candidates?
Well, I think he took away his thunder, I think, when he now announced that he's going to come back in. I think initially, I think it would have been a real problem. Now, I think people look at him as an eccentric old man that probably should stay out.
Tony, you have been very involved in this visit as well as the visit to Findlay. You're getting to be a pro at this. Are you going to start arranging presidential visits for a living? I hope you're not, because we want you as Hancock County Auditor.
I told the one advance man that this is about my fourth time now, and I've got it down pretty well. So if they need somebody to go on the road temporarily, of course, I would do it. But they've got some good folks here. The guy who is here this time with the president is a volunteer. That he's not the lead advance man, but he spent 8 years with Nixon and Ford in the White House, so he knows how to put them on.
Tony, thank you, and enjoy the visit.
Thanks, Mike.
Hancock County Sheriff Byron Boutwell. Sheriff Boutwell, this has had to have been a very busy week for you.
Yes, for learning a very short notice here, things went together real well. We've had a lot of cooperation from a lot of people.
Sheriff Boutwell, I see more Hancock County sheriffs in one place than I've seen. Normally, they're spread throughout the county. How many deputies approximately do you have in force here today?
Okay, we have about 50 deputies in force here today.
And you, of course, have been in constant contact with the Secret Service. When did you start planning this? Was it Monday? It had to be very short notice for you.
Yes, we had our first meeting Tuesday. That's when we had our first meeting, and then everything had just really come together since then. We also have had some assistance from park rangers and so forth from the area here that is really helping out.
What is in your opinion, the toughest part of this kind of a spectacular event from a security point of view?
Well, one of the toughest things is a lot of times everything's changing continually, and so you have to be planned for just about anything.
Byron, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Young man, what is your name?
Craig Sheets.
All right, and it's Craig?
Craig
Sheets. Craig, you are about to have lunch with the First Lady of America. Right. What are you going to do after that? What are you going to do to top that this afternoon?
Well, I'm going to go get married about an hour afterwards.
What a day. Now, when did you find out that you were going to be having lunch with the First Lady?
Thursday night. I just got a phone call, and they said, come on out, we want you as a guest. So I thought they were joking at first, but they knew what they were talking about, so they had me here.
Now, if you ever forget your anniversary, you are in a lot of trouble. You know that. Well, tell us the name of the very lucky young lady who will become your bride.
Christina Martin.
And what time are you getting married exactly?
Exactly 3:30.
Now, Larry Crates said he will be playing for your wedding, and he has to leave early so he can start playing. Right. Do you care about that?
I hope he shows up. My bride won't like it too well.
All right, now we got some more members. What are you more nervous about, Craig? Are you more nervous about having lunch with the First Lady or about getting married?
It's pretty much both the same, but I think I'll be more nervous when I see Chris walk down the altar.
All right. To you, a very long and happy marriage, and have a great time having lunch with the First Lady.
Thank you.
Thank you. Former Congressman Latta, could you talk to us here? Could you take a few minutes to talk with us, please? We're live right now. Congressman Latta, this is, of course, nothing new for you to greet a president. You've done it for years. Are you satisfied with the turnout of the crowd?
Well, it's a beautiful day, and they have a pretty good turnout here. I understood that they were trying to hold it down to 1,500, which I couldn't imagine why they would do that. I think this ticket thing, is kind of taboo. I don't believe that they ought to ask people to pick up a ticket someplace to get in here, because they go through that electronics machine and they can detect metal. But I think it's very important to the area, and it'll stimulate a lot of enthusiasm among the troops.
As a veteran political figure, right now, your thoughts on the campaign. The president is behind in the polls. Is that a problem?
I think he can pull it off. I think he's got to start talking economics, because that's a real issue. And I just mentioned to a couple of people over there that they ought to go back and see what the Democrats were proposing under Carter, what they got through under Carter, what they did, and what we did under Reagan-Bush. For example, one of the first things that we did was Graham-Latta, where we really reduced expenditures. And then under Latta-Michael budget the next year, we reduced expenditures. And then the people said, well, we don't quite like that. We had a little downturn in the economy. And they threw out 34 members that we needed to continue cutting that budget. That's where the people made a mistake. But during that period of time, we made some tax changes that are most important to the American people, especially the farmers. For example, inheritance taxes. We cut inheritance taxes over the objections of people like Rostenkowski, so that the farmers could maintain that farm after the father was deceased. Prior to that time, they had to sell the farm to pay the inheritance taxes. Question is whether or not right away they're going to come back with a tax bill and they're going to increase those inheritance taxes. Very, very important, and something that people ought to start thinking about, especially the farmers and the small business people. They ought to start thinking about how those taxes help them. We had the longest period in the history of this country of increases in the amount of the growth in this government during Reagan-Bush. People ought to be remembered.
Former Congressman Latta, Mr. Perot has jumped out of the campaign. Now he is more or less back. Is he going to be a factor at all after dumping out?
Well, I'm not assuming he's going to jump back in, but if he does jump back in, he's going to be a factor, there's no question about it, because a lot of people out there are supporting him, and you don't know which way those people are going to go. He'll be a factor down in Texas, and Bush needs Texas to win this campaign.
Looking back on your long and distinguished career, and I know this would be tremendously difficult, but can you pick out your favorite highlight of your career?
Oh, I never thought about it. No, we just did our everyday work and did what we thought was right for the people, and we're satisfied with what we did. I look back on it, you know, if I had 30 years of my life to live over, I probably would do the same thing over. So, but I would say during the first 2 years of the Reagan-Bush administration, the most satisfying of all the time I was in the Congress. You got to keep in mind that all the time I was in the Congress of the United States, I was in a minority, meaning that the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate. I was in the minority. So we had to do something by getting Southern Democrats to go along with us who were conservative. And we got some things done. But there are other times, you know, and I served on the Rules Committee for 24 years, and that committee decides what's going to be on the floor and how. And believe it or not, the Democrats wanted to control that committee so much that they put 9 Democrats and 4 Republicans on that committee. People don't know that. That's how they control the flow of legislation on the floor of the House. That's the way it is today. Do they want to continue that way? I think if I were President Bush, I'd be pointing the finger at those people that have been passing this legislation, passing it. We haven't been passing it as Republicans. They've been passing it. Same way over there in the Senate. You know, they control the flow of legislation. They control what's going to come on. And I think it's important they know what's going on.
You know what? While I have kept you here, your orange juice has been
sure
getting warmer.
The people I got this for, they're probably going to be blaming you and not me.
I tell them it's my fault. Former Congressman Latta, thanks, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
You look as great as ever.
Well, I feel good.
Good. Former Congressman Delbert Latta. Well, the presidential train, probably not too far away. The press train has already arrived, as you have seen in the background. So we are now awaiting the president. The president will disembark from the train. He will have his lunch, and then after some brief remarks by several other people, the president will be speaking. And of course, we're going to be carrying that live for you right here on TV 47 as the president visits Arlington, the second visit to northwestern Ohio in a very, very short time. Somebody said earlier, this is probably the first time this has ever happened. Congressman Oxley said, it's got to be the first time that this has ever happened that a president has visited an area, at least our area, in such a brief interlude, with such a brief interlude in between the two visits. So Arlington is revved up. And lest we forget, the reason for this whole celebration is the centennial of Arlington's incorporation. Not of them becoming a village, but of them becoming incorporated. From what we understand, Arlington really started about 150 years ago, but they didn't become incorporated until 1892. So they're having a celebration, and a rather special guest stopping by. As a matter of fact, several special guests. We also have word that there are a number of dignitaries on the train, but probably most of them will not be getting off the train here in Arlington. Well, we're still awaiting the president's arrival, and I think at this time we need to take another short break because we're going to try to find some more guests as we wait for that train to pull in right behind us. Let's take a time out. We'll go back to our studios, and we'll be back in just a moment or two.
Well, Mike, you certainly had the opportunity to speak with several people. What was the mood of the crowd at that point?
Well, I think in the words of the old Carly Simon song, high anticipation. There were so many people who were at this point glancing down the tracks, glancing south, hoping that that train would hurry up, that they'd hear the whistle. They'd already seen the one train, but they wanted the big train to head in. So everybody was revved up, quietly revved up, and waiting.
Now, when the first train came through, which was a security train, and in Marysville, when that train came through, we at first thought it was the president. Everybody gets excited. Is that what happened also in Arlington?
I think everybody kind of knew. There may have been an announcement. I was so busy talking with so many people, but there may have been a PA announcement that this is not the train. And I think they may have announced that it was a press train rather than a security train. I'm not sure. I got the impression it was a press train, but obviously it was a security train.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed that was a Secret Service train is in the back. It was all clear so that they could see out, obviously, for the president's safety. But there was a sign at the bottom of the train that said, "The president is on next train," because so many people would get so excited in all the little stops thinking that this was the president's train. Now, one of the things that did happen on Saturday was that TV47 brought you exclusive live coverage of the event, and we're going to take a look at that right now.
Two sounds right now dominating this Arlington Park. The sound of the Arlington High School all-brass band and a train whistle. And that train whistle signifies that the President of the United States is just a few moments away from arriving on the tracks which are behind us. I'm sure that you've seen by now this huge crowd awaiting. We don't have a monitor here, unfortunately, so I'm not always sure what you're seeing when I'm talking about it, but I'm sure that you have seen the huge crowd and the people gathered, and now we can not only hear the train whistle, but we can hear the rumble of the engine, and we can see off to our left, just in the background, it's not visible yet to everybody, but the train, which is now slowing and about to come to a halt. So the President of the United States and the First Lady can disembark. And the crowd, of course, when they see him, as you can hear that train whistle in the background, I was going to say the crowd will start cheering. Obviously, they are not even going to wait for that. They are already cheering as they see the train come into sight. The Arlington residents who are celebrating the centennial of their incorporation. Now the flags waving, and the band playing enthusiastically in the background. And in just a few moments, we will be seeing the President of the United States as he comes to Arlington, 1992. Many of the people here who bought box lunches, and they were $5 a piece, have already eaten. But the president also will be eating his lunch, he and the First Lady, and apparently will be not at the same table, as we've already heard. Other dignitaries who apparently will be detraining with him, among them will be the governor of Ohio, George Voinovich. We have heard various names of people who may or may not be on the train. We have heard the names Charlton Heston, the former quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, Bart Starr. We have heard the name of Arnold Schwarzenegger, which would not be terribly surprising because Arnold Schwarzenegger has appeared with the president in the past. And as a matter of fact, I believe is the head of the Physical Fitness Council, the president's Physical Fitness Council. So I would not be terribly surprised if we found out that indeed Arnold Schwarzenegger was on the train. Rather longer train than we had expected, as it now creeping along the tracks. And I'm sure that when they find the right spot for the president to disembark, and you know that that has been well planned indeed, that the train will come to a full stop and the president and his party will be getting off the train here. We are delighted to have you with us on this live coverage of the presidential visit 1992. A sea of American flags being waved. They were handed out to people as they came in here. The Arlington Brass Band playing in the background. And several signs, not the least of which a large blue sign that welcomes President and Mrs. Bush to this centennial celebration. Please forgive me for batting bees, but they are thick out here. I don't know if they're Republicans or Democrats, but they have invaded Arlington Park as they have invaded everywhere this particular season. Mosquitoes were thick out here this morning. They seem to have left us, but the bees have taken over. Now that train in the background almost slowed down, and as you can see, it is not the most new-looking train. It's a rather old-fashioned looking train, and that is, of course, by design. Now the train almost at a stop. Of course, on that train somewhere, we believe, our very own Misty Langley. She, this morning, heading to Marysville, Ohio, to join the president's train-cade. I don't know if that's a word or not, but she, I believe, is on the particular train that has just pulled in here to Arlington Park. Arlington Park, a sea of standing and waving people right now. So if the president had hoped for an enthusiastic reaction, certainly he is getting it here. Congressman Michael Oxley, earlier in the day, had addressed remarks to the crowd and said that he had called the president's office, lobbying to get the president here, and he said, Mr. President, I think we can get you an enthusiastic reception. And right now, it would appear that that is certainly the case, that indeed the president will receive a very enthusiastic welcome when he detrains. We are still awaiting the first sight of the president, and I'm sure we won't have to tell you when he does get off the train. The roar will tell you that. There's a huge, you can't see it, but right behind my back right now, a huge three-tier on a semi-truck, three-tier press gallery. And I'm sure that will be filled up in the next few moments. We understand that the media, many of whom have already gotten off a media train, will be heading this way, and you probably see them behind us. And as I say that, I see a cameraman heading this way right now. And it would appear that this will be the place where the media will be entering and heading to that huge three-tier stand to take the photographs, to take the video of the appearance here in Arlington of the President of the United States. Well, some people now getting off the train. Obviously, the President will not get off right away. There are a number of things which have to happen. If you want coordination and planning, then this is the event for you, because there are so many people involved in so many facets of it. We were talking, all right, now it's time to introduce some of the dignitaries getting off the train. From my vantage point, I cannot see terribly well the people getting off the train, but I'm sure that our cameras will pick it up. Governor Voinovich, as we told you before, among the party. And I believe that I do see Governor Voinovich, although we are a long, long way away from the train. But you will have, again, no trouble knowing when the president gets off that train. The announcer here priming the crowd, getting them ready. And we will just be quiet when the president gets off the train, because you won't be able to hear a word we say anyway. So the tension is building. Everybody looking toward that train with a few exceptions, and if there are any exceptions, you know that they must be security people. Those are the only people who are not looking toward the train right now. The Arlington High School Brass Band poised to play under the direction of Ron Cable. A number of people already off the train, as you can see, I'm sure. Now the band's starting to play, albeit very softly in the background. A number of people have left the train, and we are still awaiting the first appearance of the President of the United States, who is apparently in the next to last car, although that may or may not be true. There is nothing ever really sure about a presidential visit. Security is such that what you see is not necessarily what you get, and that's exactly the way the Secret Service plans it. The security here at Arlington Park today has been immense and total. If you didn't belong somewhere, you were quickly, politely told, but very firmly told that you did not belong there, and you were asked to leave that area immediately. Everybody did. Still, people getting off the train. As we said, a much longer train than one might have anticipated. I did not count the cars as it went by, but we do see a number of media people headed our way right now as they have gotten off the train and now are heading to the flatbed truck on which 3 tiers have been installed for television cameras, for radio people, I'm sure for newspaper people also. The band playing in the background as we still await the first appearance of the President of the United States. Some of the crowd inside the ropes. There is a number of people outside the ropes. Now the press coming in, the press and other media people. And here's an announcement, a request by the President.
That we all do sit down.
All right, he has asked.
Enjoying your lunch.
All right, the President has asked that everyone sit down and enjoy their lunch. So apparently some of the people still have their lunches left. I think some of them may have eaten the lunches, but apparently as I look around, a lot of people did not. So they have been waiting to indeed have lunch with the President of the United States. And he has asked that everybody sit down. When he gets off the train, he will proceed, as he gets off the train, to his right. And then he will come back to his left and get into the infield portion of Arlington Park's softball diamond, and that is where the tables are set up. We were talking earlier today with some employees of the telephone company, and they said they had a number of people out here, 8 to 12 people every day, just installing phone lines for not only the media, but of course for direct communications to Washington. So it has been a busy, busy day. All right, we're going to try to get Misty Langley when she arrives, and apparently she is now somewhere between the train and our location. Misty, as we told you, got on the presidential train this morning at Marysville, and we hope that we can catch her on the run as she goes by. She may be a tad out of breath, which wouldn't surprise me at all, but I'm sure she's going to be very, very happy to report on what has happened on that train. Probably pretty psyched up, I would imagine, too. The media now filtering in, a number of them headed for the platform. We have a camera in place up there, of course, already, and we are looking for Misty Langley as the media corps comes swarming in to this area set up for them. See, some of the folks have indeed opened their box lunches. Those box lunches, by the way, were put together by the parents of the members of the Arlington High School all-brass band. And they had to be ready, in case you're wondering, at 8 o'clock this morning, so each and every box lunch could be checked by security forces. There are a number of hay bales sitting around this area, some of which I'm sure you've already seen on your screens. During the sweep, as they call it, the Secret Service goes through and sweeps the entire area. One of the agents came in with a dowel rod, a couple of dowel rods. They sharpened those, and they immediately began poking through the hay bales to make sure that there was nothing that should not have been in those hay bales. So there is nothing left to chance when the president goes anywhere. They do not take any chances at all. The band playing in the background. Obviously, there will be a slight delay while we await the first appearance of the President of the United States, who earlier this morning was in Marysville. From here, he will, of course, go through Findlay. The plans yet really not cemented. I think that it all depends on the crowd, and from what we have determined here, and we have not been in Findlay since quite early this morning, well before the first dawn of light, but from what we have heard, as early as 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning, that portion of Findlay in which the president is expected to be out there by the soccer fields, Emory Adams soccer fields, there was a huge crowd already formed. So we will have to wait and see what determination the president and the president's people make insofar as the president either slowing down and or stopping in the city of Findlay. Here we go, folks.
The president and Mrs. Bush, accompanied by Governor George Voinovich.
You can hear in the background, the president is now ready to enter Arlington.
honored to me that I'd be here today to introduce such a truly great American to the President. We have many titles. Fortunately, yours are all professional. My friends, before getting to the moment you've been waiting for, let me present from the heart of America the woman who has touched all of our hearts, our First Lady, Barbara Bush. Mr. President, I'm sure this community will always remember the anticipation of the last 7 days and the joy this afternoon. Sir, what you see here today
the President is about ready to begin speaking.
Is a grateful community. Community that has joined together to make our centennial celebration so successful and memorable. We're only 4,600 strong in Flag Village, USA. What we represent in the truest sense your vision and commitment to volunteerism and the points of life. Mr. President, although we won't be here 100 years from now, what better way for our grandchildren to cherish the historical events of Arlington than from the great President and Commander-in-Chief. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome someone who has come to celebrate our centennial at Arlington, Ohio, our President, the President of the United States, George Bush.
Thank you very, very much. What a wonderful welcome to Arlington. Thank you so much. I just wish each and every one of you could have been on us on this train ride from Columbus here. It has been magnificent, a wonderful turnout of the true American spirit, a welcome by Ohio that has warmed our hearts, and then to come here for this icing on the cake, this fantastic rally. We are very, very glad to be with you on your 100th anniversary. In case you didn't see him when we walked in, I want to be sure you salute and honor a truly great governor, George Voinovich. What a job he's doing for this state. And your Congressman, Mike Oxley, and I go back a long, long time. You got one of the best. If we had more like him, everybody wouldn't be yelling clean house. We need to clean house, but we need more like Mike Oxley to get the job done for America. And I believe Mike DeWine is with us, but whether I haven't seen him on this stop, he's been along with us, but let me say whether he's here or not, we must clean house, and that means we need a new senator. Please elect this great lieutenant governor to the United States Senate. And Mayor Souter, may I thank you and all the citizens here for this warm welcome. I'll tell you, as we were leaning out of the train, coming around the bend here, and you could just sense the feeling of this marvelous community gathering, and we are very, very grateful to you. I understand that your local deputy, Craig Sheets, is here, or he was here a minute ago. He's the guy all dressed up because he's getting married in less than an hour, and I wanted to single, here he is right here. We wish him well. Craig, we want to wish you and Chris Martin all the very, very best and a great life of happiness ahead. Now, today's been a wonderful day for Barbara and me. the send-off from my dad's birthplace in Columbus, Ohio, then a stop in Marysville, which is where Barbara's mother was born, and then the trip here through this gentle, beautiful, highly productive Ohio farmland. And people greeting us on both sides of the spirit of America, great sounds and sights. It has been a wonderfully moving day where you can't help but count your blessings and say America is the greatest, freest country on the face of the earth. You saw all kind of farmers lined up along the railroad tracks. We saw a dairy farmer holding up a sign. Said he'd be pulling for me. Well,
Which one?
hey, listen, that ought to ruin your lunch, but that's what I saw.
Can they do it now?
But we knew the best still lay ahead of us. This town, this lunch, Rosemary Orwick's pasta noodles. I'm not quite sure what's more difficult, working with Congress or getting Rosemary to divulge her secret recipe I'm about to sample here. But there's a lot at stake in this election, and we have won great victories around the world. The kids here in this beautiful cross-section of America can go to bed at night without the same fear of nuclear war that the older generation had. And that is a wonderful accomplishment for the United States of America, and we ought to take great pride in it. And now it's time, with all these dramatic changes around the world that we've helped bring about, decline and fall of the Soviet Empire, Middle Eastern enemies talking to each other, democracy on the move south of our border, the great countries of Eastern Europe free at last. It's now time to roll up our sleeves and renew America, just as our ancestors did. And we want an America of the best schools in the world. We want safe neighborhoods and safe streets, and that's what I'm fighting for against this Congress in Washington, D.C. We want lower taxes and less regulation, an America working and hoping and building where every day is like the 4th of July for our families and for these young people here today. And I'm not going to ruin this magnificent picnic with a long political speech, but let me just say that the question before you in this election is very simple. My opponent believes that America should pay more taxes because government planners, senior little chairmen up there in the Congress, bureaucrats can spend your money more wisely than you can. And I don't believe that for one single minute. You know, all of this talk about class warfare and a talk of moderation and going after the rich, he's got a big tax increase aimed right at the heart of middle America. And I don't think we need that. I believe you should keep more of your hard-earned dollars because you can invest them more wisely. And in my second term, and believe me, there will be one, I will continue to be doing for this nation what your great governor is doing for Ohio, opening up new markets for our products and creating new jobs for our workers. We can out-hustle the workers in any other country if we open those foreign markets to American expertise, and that's what I'm trying to do. And so we will be working to hold the line on government spending and taxes and regulation to cut the health care costs down with my health care program that provides everybody in this country that needs it insurance. We keep the quality of health care, but we then provide insurance to people, and we do not get the government further involved like some of the socialist systems around the world. We got the best, we want to make it better and make it available to all. And the liberals in Washington don't like it, but let me tell you something. I am going to keep trying to find ways to strengthen the American family. The family is our strength, and the family needs to be supported, not divided. And how do you do that? You do it by giving parents more choice in child care or in schools. You do it by reforming welfare so that if a young girl is in school and tries to save a little money, save over $1,000, her mother doesn't get thrown off of welfare. Reform the system to keep families together rather than trying to drive them apart. Strengthening the family by making our neighborhoods safer. I strongly back our local law enforcement people, our firefighters, our policemen, our county sheriff's people. I back them all the way because they are fighting for the American family by cutting down crime in our neighborhoods all across America. So when I talk about strengthening the family, it's this and so many things else. And I might say something about our First Lady. When she holds in her arms a baby stricken by AIDS or cancer, she's sending the signal that we ought to love each other more. And when she sits there in the White House and reads to a group of kids, she's setting an example for parents and families all across this country because reading to kids is important. So don't let the liberals scare us away from strengthening the American family. We are right and you are right. And this part of America knows exactly what I'm talking about. In its great 100 years, Arlington has seen its children march off to war, its young men and women, seen its old cry, see the cry of the tears of depression, and you've marveled at the arrival of new technology and treasured this sturdy foundation of the traditional values that we're talking about here. And through every change, America has emerged stronger, and it is the same today. Our challenges look difficult, and we've got big challenges. And if you look around the world, you'll see the whole world is facing economic challenges. Whether it's in Europe or wherever else it is, there's enormous economic change taking place. And in spite of what my opponent says, the United States, although we got to do much better, is the envy of the entire world, whether it's our economy, our military strength, our system of freedom. And so I am not one who wants to get to be president again by complaining about the United States or tearing it down or saying, as Governor Clinton does, that we are somewhere less than Germany and a little better than Sri Lanka. We are the United States of America, the envy of the entire world, because we have stood for freedom, and we can do anything we set our sights on. And my faith is in the American people. My faith is with the people, to give the people the power that comes from less government, less taxes, less regulation, and more confidence in the neighborhoods and in the communities and in the young people we're surrounded with here today. And so I come here as an optimist about America, and I want to finish the job that I have started. I believe this. It's not that I need to be president, but it is that I want to finish the job and strengthen the institutions and particularly the family that we've talked about. We've made a big start. We are the envy of the world, and I am proud that these kids go to bed at night without the same fear of nuclear war that their predecessors did. Much, much prouder than I could be of anything else. But now I ask for your support. 4 more years to strengthen America, bring us back, bring economic opportunity to all, and may God bless our great country. And thank you all very, very much. And Mayor, will you come up? And this is a little symbol that's flown over the Capitol. This is for Arlington on its 100th birthday. Many, many thanks and congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thanks so much.
And of course, the president speaking in Arlington at the 100th or the centennial celebration of the incorporation of the village of Arlington. The president, of course, made mention of the fact that Barbara Bush was in the crowd. In addition to that, he made reference to the fact of the Sheets-Martin wedding, which will be going on, for which Barbara Bush will in turn, of course, be attending it with the president. And of course, he made mention of the fact that kids in today's day and age no longer have to fear the nuclear war that we did when we were growing up, and how the world has changed thanks to the Bush administration. And Dean Souter, or that's Mayor Dean Souter, of course, introduced the president for this entire conversation. And of course, he did indicate that that the Democrats want more taxes, and that the bureaucrats feel that they can spend your money better than you can. Of course, he's definitely against that particular situation. He assures him that the second term will be, of course, a better term, that he wants to work for the better family values. In addition to that, complete the job that he has started. And as far as that goes, he also wants to open new markets for the world, making as he says, workers can out-hustle any other workers throughout the entire country. Another issue that he brought up was the fact that he wants to take care of health care and, of course, insurance. Then, of course, having a better social situation. And, of course, let's take a look right now. Let's go out to Mike McKittrick and Misty Langley, who are live out in Arlington. And take it away, Mike.
We told you earlier, Misty Langley got on the presidential train this morning at Marysville. And just a few moments ago, as the president got ready to speak, she got off the train. Misty, quite a train trip. Tell us about it.
Oh, Mike, it has been so exciting. We've been in Marysville all morning, and the train came in, and it was just a lot of fun. Got back on the train, and word has it, it's unofficial, official, but they're calling it spontaneous, saying that the train will stop. The Spirit of America will make a spontaneous stop in Findlay, but we kind of got a wink of the eye and a nudge of a press corps, which saying, yeah, Findlay, we're going to stop there. So Findlay is ready for Bush to make it.
I'm not sure how many cars there on that train. I didn't count, but I would say somewhere in the area of 10 to 11. Whereabouts were you on the train?
Okay, we're about the second or third car from the front, and the President and Barbara are in the last train car. Now, Debbie Holman, our videographer, did make it to the back of the train in President Bush's car. She did meet the president, and when we went through Canton, they waved to the crowd, and Debbie got to stand outside. I'm sure she'll one time at least get to tell you all about that.
And of course, when the train heads to Findlay, both of you will be on that train, and you'll get some great shots of Findlay people waiting for the president.
That's right. We hope to. We're not quite sure if we'll be able to get off. We don't know if, when we say Bush is going to be making a stop, he might just come to the end of the train like he did in Canton and wave and say a couple words, but he probably will not actually get off the train, but he could surprise us. So we're just really, really excited that he's going to stop in Findlay.
You saw a number of very famous news people while you were on the train, did you not?
That's right. The very first train, there's a lot of network correspondents, CNN correspondents, and it's just really exciting to see, and they're just all walking around. There's tons of telephones and computers just going a mile away, AP, Associated Press, UPI, so everybody is very busy on this train tour today.
When you pulled into Arlington and looked out here at Arlington Park, what were your thoughts when you first saw the crowd?
Oh, Mike, it was overwhelming. It's just like you get all excited and shaky, and you see all the flags. Undoubtedly, this was the biggest turnout so far that we have seen in spirit and flags and colors, and everybody was just in awe when we drove up. But let me tell you, from Marysville up to Arlington, it was really neat to see. All the farmers were out. Each roadblock where the train crossed, just dozens of people, signs, home video cameras, still cameras. Everybody knew exactly when the president was coming and where he'd be crossing, and everybody made a point to make it out today to see the president.
Okay, any final thoughts? I know you're going to have to think about getting on the train in just a moment or two, you and Debbie both. And Debbie will probably be signing autographs for everybody at the station since she got to meet the president and the first lady. But any final thoughts before we let you get out of here?
I'm going to try and make it back to the last car, but no, we're going to get back on and we're going to get up to Bowling Green. Hopefully we're going to get some interviews while we're here, and just keep on with the spirit of America.
Okay. To explain to people, we of course are live, and Debbie and Misty are going to try to get a number of taped interviews that we can show you a little later, and we hope, now we're not sure of this at all, but we hope we can get some live coverage in Findlay. We're going to try as best we can, and we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Well, that'd be great, and if you don't, we're on the train, and we'll be heading all the way up with them to Bowling Green, so we'll hopefully be able to get off and get around Findlay a little bit. But we do have a crew in Findlay, so we're very well covered.
Okay. Outside of working on In the Morning, has this been your second biggest thrill?
Yes, this has been the second biggest thrill of my life. I will probably never forget this for as long as I live, and it's just been a wonderful experience, and I hope someday to do it again.
Okay, Misty, thank you. To you and Deb, good luck. Have a great train ride.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Misty Langley, who has been on the train ever since Marysville. Now, we are hoping, and I'll just step up here. Go ahead. Thank you very much. And I know that our cameraman's about ready to kill me for doing that, and I'm sorry to do that, but we're trying to stay out of the way. We are going to take a break. We're trying to get, if we can, at least one or two more people to whom we can talk. But right now, let's take a brief time out. We'll be back at Arlington Park in just a moment.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our live coverage as much as we enjoyed bringing it home to you. And Mike, there's still a lot more to come tonight.
There absolutely is, Misty. In a moment, we're going to be showing you some coverage of interviews right after the President's appearance, plus the President and the First Lady up very close again. Probably the best footage you will see or will have seen anywhere of the President and the First Lady in a very touching little ceremony. That will all happen in a moment, right after this short timeout.
This portion of Spirit of America 92, President Bush Visits Ohio, is brought to you by Magic Auto Glass and Trim, 622 East Sandusky in Findlay.
And welcome back to the Spirit of America 92, our very special look back at Saturday and the President's visit to northwestern Ohio. Misty, the President's speech was over. However, there was still much more to come.
That's right. The President worked the crowds, went around, shook hands, spoke with people, but we continued on with our interviews. We spoke with Representative Charles Brading and Governor George Voinovich, and I think we'll take a look at that right now.
State Representative Charles Brading, you got on the train in Marysville. Tell us the mood on the train.
The mood on the train was upbeat, Mike. We every little village that we passed through, countryside, people were in their trucks waving at the President, and we saw a lot of signs. There was a lot of enthusiasm for the President today, and the train slowed down in Kenton, and a lot of people in Kenton. They had a band there, but this tops it all. Arlington, I think the celebration here outdoes Marysville 10 times, and we were just so pleased in the train. The people that I was in the train in the car with the Chief Justice and Bob Bennett, the state chairman, and they were just amazed at the turnout here and the amount of enthusiasm that this crowd brought for the President. So it's been a great day. It's perhaps a thrill of a lifetime for me.
I hate to keep asking you the same questions, but as I ask you in Findlay, the President behind in the polls, has that started to bother you at all?
Well, to be very honest, yes, it has a little bit. I'm still hoping that events such as this can turn the situation around. I think if people listen to the President's message, family values, I think is still very important. You know, that's being discredited in the press, but I think the President has an excellent message, and I still think we have time to turn this around. But am I a little bit concerned? I think at this point I am, because we're not that far away from the election.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you grade this? You've already been very enthusiastic about the visit to Arlington, but on a scale of 1 to 10, where does it rank?
10. I think it's the best. And I told the President this is a great district, you know, and I'm really privileged to serve in this district because they always turn out and are very enthusiastic. So that's what I told him.
with the governor, the Honorable George Voinovich. Governor, you just returned, as a matter of fact, I believe, perhaps late last night from a very special trip. How did your trip go?
Well, it was a good trade mission on behalf of Ohio business. The thing that really made me feel good is that we visited 6 countries and brought home over $5 million worth of sales for our people, and most of them are going back in a month and a half to firm up their business connections. The other thing that I saw was the fact that we're seeing our Ohio products, particularly our agriculture products, now being sold in Japan. In fact, my wife Janet was promoting Ohio Premier Beef in Tokyo. 15 tons of it going out every week, and it's called Ohio Premier Beef. And if it wasn't for the president forcing the Japanese to take down their barriers, that wouldn't be happening today. In addition, as you know, we're importing or exporting Hondas now from Marysville, Ohio to Tokyo. And Honda is acting as a distributor for the Jeep Cherokee that's manufactured in Toledo, Ohio. So I think that if we can get more of our companies involved in that international marketplace, we can do a better job with our economy. In fact, those companies that are involved in the global marketplace in the state have done fairly well during the recessionary period. The other thing I found out, and I think your viewers should know about, is the fact that the world is in a recession. And we may think things are tough here in the United States, but in Europe they're in awful shape. Even in Japan, the recession is really hitting them. So what we need to do is just roll up our shirt sleeves and focus in on being more competitive and selling more of our products, not only to ourselves, but out in that world marketplace.
Governor, obviously you had a great trip just back from that. How would you describe today's trip from Columbus to Arlington?
Oh, I think that it's been great. It's been the turnout of people has been so much more than what I expected, and certainly the president expected. All those little crossroads that we passed by where people were out waving the American flag and had little messages for them to keep it up and get the job done. I think it's been good, and I think it's important that he does this because people have got to know that he's concerned about the little people in the little towns and the agricultural industry around this country. And I think that this kind of a visit makes people more enthusiastic, and I think it's going to help a great deal to get our people out on Election Day. I really believe that the president's going to carry Ohio. I think that when people go into the voting booth and they've got to decide between George Bush and Bill Clinton, and they weigh the qualifications of the candidates, I think they're going to conclude that they trust George Bush, that he's the most qualified individual, and they're going to give him another chance to serve this country for 4 more years.
You are an experienced campaigner. The polls, how much do they mean at this point to you?
I don't think they mean a great deal, because the last poll that I saw in Ohio showed that there were about 55% of the people still that had not made up their mind. And I think that as people, as I mentioned, focus in on this election and look at what Bush is and his experience and the fact that he's the undisputed leader of the world, and it's going to take those same qualifications to provide the economy that we need in this country and not continue knocking down those barriers around the world for Ohio and U.S. products, and then look at the inexperience of Governor Clinton. You know, Arkansas is a little pea pod compared to Ohio. I'm the governor of the 7th largest state in the United States, and they've got about 2 million people. That's a little bit more than what I had when I was county commissioner up in Northeast Ohio. And if you look at the record, if you look at Arkansas, if he even does half of what he does for the United States as he's done for Arkansas, we're in deep trouble, because on almost every indication, they're at the bottom. Ohio surpasses Arkansas in every category where you judge a state. I mean, things are so bad in that state, they don't even keep track of the dropout rate in their high schools. 1 out of 4 people in that state aren't covered by medical care. They have some of the polluted rivers and streams. The point I'm making is that when people look at the record, they're going to say, hey, I'm going to stay with George Bush. Maybe I don't think he's focused enough on the domestic affairs in this country, but I know that he's got the leadership and the character and the experience to get the job done.
So you are...
And now we're going to take a look at some more video that videographer Debbie Homan shot. and it's the president and his wife as they get off the train in Arlington.
Some people may wonder why we are showing the president getting off the train now after we have shown him speaking. Obviously, he did get off the train before he spoke. It would have been very difficult to have done otherwise. We want to explain that very briefly and say that we could have done a much longer job of editing. Had we done so, you would not have been able to see this for several more days. And we wanted you to see this as quickly as possible. We've had so many calls, so many inquiries about our video, our coverage of the president. So the coverage that you have seen has been a mixture tonight, actually, of our live coverage, which originated from Arlington Saturday, and the video that you're seeing now, which was not live. And to have blended that all together, Misty, would have taken more days than we care to have waited. We were impatient to get this show on the air tonight.
That's right, Mike. And another thing about the video you're seeing is because news is condensed in such a short time period, you would not have seen this up-close video of the president and his wife, which is why tonight we're taking the time out to show you all of the video that we shot with our mini cameras that were out there. Right now we're all looking at President George Bush as he works the crowd, shakes some hands, smiles, and meets the people of Arlington.
Of course, we've seen the same scenes from a different angle. From the three-tiered press gallery, so to speak, where our camera was located. But now here's video up much more close. And as a matter of fact, coming up in just a few moments, we have, I think, the most exclusive coverage anyone got anywhere. And I'm talking major network coverage of a small ceremony, but a very touching ceremony that took place to more or less culminate the Arlington Centennial Celebration. We really got some great shots Saturday.
That's right, Mike. And by looking at this video and the scenes coming up of the cutting of the Centennial cake, I think it could very easily be called Small Town USA. It's just the red, white, and blue at its best and Flag Village USA at its best. And here the president takes the stand with Arlington Mayor Dean Suter, getting ready to give the speech to all of us.
Of course, he has just shaken hands with our Congressman, Michael Oxley, and we did see that scene earlier. Obviously, he just met Jack Betts, also a previous congressman from Findlay.
Mr. President, never occurred to me that I'd be here today.
And there's some more crowd shots. We did show you the speech earlier, which is why we just cut now to some more video, and we're just giving you some more exclusive coverage of the event that TV47 brought to you on Saturday. And there's the big flag.
One thing I need to mention too, the many, many people who provided the entertainment at Arlington, a number of people, local talent, and what a great job they did. They, of course, had to spend a little bit more time than they thought they would have to because the train was not quite on schedule. And the crowd really got some great entertainment from the local talent at Arlington. Did a great job.
That's right. I feel that the music was very wonderful in Arlington. The band, that was the stop where the bands played the longest. And it was really nice to hear the music going. As soon as the president was done speaking, the band picked right up. And I think that the Arlington area bands did a wonderful job.
You know what, too? Not too many people realize this. The people in Arlington certainly did, but the Arlington High School band that night had to travel to a band competition. You talk about a busy day for those youngsters.
Probably one of the biggest days of their band career.
Oh, I would have to think so. And of course, their parents had prepared the lunches, many, many lunches for the huge crowd there. Estimated at around 3,500. I'm not very good at counting crowds, but that was about what they expected, and certainly I think that's about what they got.
And there's a pan of the crowd, and if you're in a crowd, you might be able to see yourself or a family member as we're taking a look at coverage of the president's stop in Arlington on Saturday.
That's very, very close coverage indeed. Right up close to the president, to the first lady, to the many dignitaries, the governor of the state of Ohio, our congressman, our current congressman, our former congressman. And now we're getting into the exclusive video. This is the best video, I think, of this ceremony anybody got anywhere.
It certainly is. And there they are cutting the cake that the women of the Lutheran Church made. It's the Centennial cake. And that looks good.
Yes, it does. I think that the First Lady probably is going to be handling the knife there.
Yep.
As usual, the household. The lady knows more about that.
And the president stooped down there just for a moment to offer it to one of the women.
A moment, a very touching part of the festivities at the Centennial.
I believe at that moment when he held the cake up, he said, "And here it is," and everybody cheered.
Arlington residents must have been just about bursting with pride at this point.
President and Mrs. Bush, would you join us in singing God Bless America? God bless America.
That's truly a moment that will go down in the history books in Arlington, Ohio, as the president and his wife sang with all of the residents in Arlington, celebrating with them their centennial of incorporation.
I think the president enjoyed this, not only the singing, but the support he got. He gave them an obvious thumbs-up signal there, as if to say, great job, to the rather impromptu chorus.
That's right. Now we're off and heading to Findlay. This is some of the video when we were inside of the train looking out, some of that beautiful Ohio heartland as we head up to Findlay. And Debbie and I were very excited at this point, could not wait to get to Findlay. And there's some more of that.
Now, Misty, at this point, you on the train did not really know whether or not you would be making a quick stop, a slowdown. You really didn't know what was going to be happening in Findlay.
You're right, Mike. We really didn't know. And we did have an itinerary from the White House staff. They gave us a book when we boarded the train in Marysville that had all the stops of the president. And Findlay was not on this stop. But we kind of got through word of mouth that there would be an unscheduled, spontaneous stop. And it did happen, but we were not allowed to get off of the train at that point. But it was still a fascinating and a fun day for Findlay to have that stop.
Oh, absolutely. We had heard in Arlington, and of course we had not been in Findlay all day because we'd been at Arlington since dark, setting up for the coverage. But we had heard from word of mouth that there was a huge crowd gathered in Findlay, and a lot of people in Arlington were speculating indeed that the president would stop in Findlay.
That's right, and we're going to take a look at some video now of the crowds that were eagerly awaiting the president's arrival. There you see the Findlay security getting ready for the president's arrival, and the band was gearing up.
And of course out at Emory Adams Complex in Findlay, that band is preparing. Even on the short notice that Findlay had, obviously the security arrangements and the security measures were as stringent as ever. The president goes nowhere without a lot of planning and without a lot of people to carry out how many measures of which we're completely unaware, although I'm sure that you saw more than one helicopter on your trip, as did we.
That's right, there was numerous helicopters, and they were flying pretty low, but the way that the service worked is, you know, there was a train before the president's train that would go down the tracks. The Secret Service men would get off the train and they would scout out the area, and we could see that from our train, as well as the helicopters which helped with that.
I was talking with a lady who lives between Findlay and Arlington, and she said at one point she was out putting a wash up on the line, and a helicopter came down so low she thought that the rotor blades probably would dry the wash before she really got it hung up. They were checking out things very, very carefully indeed. This, of course, what was happening at Findlay. Now, this is prior, if I'm not mistaken, to the train's arrival.
That's right. We're still in Findlay at this point, waiting for the train, and there's part of the crowd.
And of course, the crowd hoping. I'm not sure the crowd knew at this point whether or not the president would simply wave. There's a familiar face handing out the American flags. the mayor of Findlay, Keith Romick.
I'm sure a very proud day for him also, as the president visits Hancock County, twice in less than 5 to 6 weeks. And here comes the first train, but I don't believe this is the security train, which first came up. And I think some of the people in Findlay might have thought that this could be the president, but false alarm. But this train does mean something. This train means that President George Bush and the First Lady are not far behind.
That's true. That's exactly the feeling we got in Arlington. Knowing that that train had arrived meant that the visit was imminent and the waiting was almost over. All that anticipation now was going to finally, at last, be met with the real event.
Now this is the train I was speaking about earlier, where at the back there's a glass panel all the way up so that the security men could see out, and the sign that said, you know, President's on the next train.
Am I mistaken in thinking that there is yet another train behind the presidential train?
When we were in Marysville, that was announced. The first train would be the Secret Service, the second train would be the president, and there would be a third train for security reasons. There is that shot of the Secret Service waiting, and here is the arrival of President George Bush and his wife to the Emory Adams complex in Findlay, Ohio. A very proud moment for everyone.
What a visit to northwestern Ohio. And amazing, again, it's hard to believe that the president had chosen this locale twice in such a short span of time. I think that took most everyone by surprise.
Yeah, I think everybody was in shock, but we were so excited and pleased. Kind of feel honored that the president wants to come back to the Findlay and Hancock County area.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of makes you feel proud to be living in this area.
Oh, it absolutely does. There's a familiar sight. I'm sure you saw this every stop. The sea of flags waving to greet the president. I know they handed them out in Arlington and the people were waving them. It was a beautiful patriotic sight, and certainly is a beautiful patriotic sight as he makes his entrance into the Findlay area.
Now somewhere in there, Debbie and I are sitting. Debbie was shooting out, and I think I was in shock at this point, but there we are. That's the view of the inside of the train, us looking out into Findlay.
This, of course, is what the president sees.
Yep, that's exactly right, the president and Mrs. Bush.
This is, again, Emory Adams complex, which, of course, busy always on a Saturday, at least during weather during which youngsters can participate in sports.
And the train's about getting ready to stop. It's pulling up. And there's some more. We're going to keep going here, and there they are. A much awaited arrival of the President of the United States to Findlay.
It's interesting to have our camera on the outside and our camera on the inside. That's a great way to show the arrival from both viewpoints.
Yes, it does. It gives you all the viewpoints. Kind of makes you feel like you were inside the train and you were in Emory Adams complex waiting. Thumbs up from the President to Findlay. That's nice to see. And the wave.
And at this point, had you been told that he would stop and make at least a brief speech?
No, we had not. We were still waiting. I could feel the train slowing down, and I guess at this point I didn't know that it was stopping, and then there was an announcement. There was a PA system in the train which said we'd be making a brief spontaneous stop in Findlay, but they didn't tell us that the president would actually get off of the train, which is what he did do.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we're about to see the president and hear the president in Findlay.
This thing working? Hey, listen, it's great to be back in Findlay. I want to come down and shake a few hands, but thanks for this welcome. We've had a great trip across all the way from Columbus through Marysville, Arlington. Here we are in Findlay, and on we go. But I'll tell you something. This is a great part of the United States. We do not let Bill Clinton tell you that this is a nation in decline. We are the best in the entire world, and we can solve it. And here's a guy that's got a good idea. He's saying clean house. Let's clean house and Capitol, and let's get this country going forward again. Clean the house. That's exactly right. Those guys have been in control of the House for 38 years, and it's time to clean house, get rid of them, and get a good team in like your representatives right here from Findlay. We need more. Wonderful day, and by the way, don't vote for a man that's going to raise your taxes and raise spending all at the same time. Do not put Governor Clinton in that White House. You know, one last word, then we'll come down. Barbara and I are dying to say hello down there, but one last word. I see these young people here today, and I take great pride in the fact that they go to bed at night with a lot less fear of nuclear weapons. And Bill Clinton says foreign affairs don't mean anything. I say world peace means an awful lot. Now let's get this country moving by less taxes and less spending, less regulation, more emphasis on strengthening the American family, and less emphasis on spending and taxing like Clinton and Gore want. Thank you all very, very much.
I think the President of the United States can almost feel like an at least honorary Findlay resident, Misty. He has got to the point where he recognizes people, and I know he does know some people in Findlay, obviously, but people who probably he's never met. He's probably saying to himself, well, now there's a lady I saw the last time I was here.
That's right, Mike, and here they are getting off the train. One quick little story to tell you about while Debbie Homan and I were on the train. When she was at the back of the train, right next to the Bushes, he asked her where she was from, and she said, well, WFND, and he said, where's that? And he said, well, she said, well, Findlay, Ohio. And he goes, oh, yes, Findlay. I remember Findlay. I was just there a short while ago. It was a very rainy day, but he talked very highly of Findlay, so he does keep in touch and remember all of his visits. There is Flag City, USA, shining brightly with the red, white, and blue.
This sudden stop, and I'm sure that he may have at least semi-planned it. Let's say that it was not a complete surprise to everybody on the train, but this is the kind of stop, I would think, that would make the Secret Service very, very nervous. And the Secret Service does obviously a great job. It is not terribly difficult to look at that picture and say, that gentleman right there, that gentleman right there, are Secret Service. They do not look quite as happy as the rest of the people in the picture. Obviously, they are concerned for the safety of the president, and obviously, they never stop watching, scanning that crowd. Interesting to watch them on any presidential visit. One of the things that we both talked about earlier this week, the fact that the Secret Service people involved in this visit, very, very nice people.
Oh, yes, Mike. They were so nice to us on the train. Very down to earth. Here's a shot. Look at this. Of the president picking up a child. Oh, no. He throws up his hands. Better luck next time. But no, I love that shot. Back to the Secret Service, Mike. They were so friendly, so nice. Now, the president's stop earlier in Hancock County at Findlay Machine and Tool, they were a little less cooler to us, only because that was more of a closed visit. It was tickets only, and they were very, very cautious. But since these were more personal and friendly stops for people to get to see the president, to shake his hand, they did allow a lot more physical contact. And you can see right here all of the shaking of the hands, the trying to pick up a child. But a very exciting day for everyone that got to shake his hand and say, I met the President of the United States.
And certainly a lot of people in our area now can say that. Because many people getting to shake his hand in Arlington, many people in Findlay. Now back to the train. And of course, you at this point had not had the time to leave the train. No one from the media had, because it would simply been too hard to get everybody back on the train.
That's right, Mike. At this point, Debbie and I were hanging out of a point where the two cars would connect, and we could barely see what's going on, and we were just dying to be out there, because this was our coverage area. Of course, this was Findlay. But we did have another camera there, which is what you're seeing right now, the camera that was in Findlay. And here they are getting back up on the train. But we were just excited for the people of Findlay that the train did stop.
Mm-hmm.
Here they are waving goodbye.
And of course now the next scheduled stop, Bowling Green. And of course it is a scheduled stop. And I know a huge crowd awaiting the president there. It would be interesting to know the number of people, and they are obviously in the thousands, the number of people Saturday who can say, I was waiting to see the president. But that sea of flags looks impressive.
It sure does. And I know the people of Findlay probably did not want that train to pull out, but let's just say we're lucky to at least have gotten a quick stop from the President and Mrs. Bush.
The president certainly treated to some great music from local high school bands also.
I do believe before he ducked inside, we did get one more thumbs up. And Mrs. Bush at that point was saying, please help us, support us. The wave, once again.
And the train about ready to pull out of, not the station anymore, not too many of those left, unfortunately.
There it is, the thumbs up.
But pull away from Emory Adams Complex and head on to Bowling Green. And of course, yet another TV47 team awaiting the president, along with the thousands of others in Bowling Green.
That's right. The president looked so casual, looked so relaxed. You could tell he was really having a good time. The smile on his face never ceased from Marysville to the point where we left him in Bowling Green. He was just enjoying it. And Barbara Bush was having a wonderful day. When we passed through Kenton, she said, oh, can we please stop? Can we please stop? But of course they didn't. But just the fact that they wanted to shows how much they really wanted to see and meet the people of Ohio.
It would have to be tempting indeed to stop just about everywhere you saw that kind of a crowd, a very friendly crowd like that. Now the train finally under a head of steam, although I don't think they have steam engines around anymore, under a head of diesel and pulling away from Emory Adams Complex.
Surprisingly enough, when we were on the train, it was a very, very smooth ride. Really nice, comfortable seats. I know they had a dining car, and somebody said at one point they thought they saw a grand piano, a baby grand piano. I never did see that. There's the president waving goodbye to Findlay. But the train moved quite slowly at a very nice pace, and then once we pulled out of the Findlay area and started headed toward Bowling Green, we did pick up some more speed. But it was a pretty nice, slow, it was a very relaxing ride.
Mm-hmm. But this time it had become not terribly threatening looking, but it had become somewhat cloudy. The sun had followed the president for most of the day, but there was just at least a hint of an overcast starting to settle in as the president, I would assume, arrived in Findlay. I know I got to Findlay shortly after the train did, and I noticed that the skies were starting to get just a little bit gray, not threatening in any way. But I would imagine as you moved on toward Bowling Green, you saw a little bit more and more and more buildup of cloudiness.
That's right, Mike. This is us as we're heading up to Bowling Green. And let me tell you that from the point we left Emory Adams all the way up to Bowling Green, at every crossing where the railroad crossed the street, there were at least over 30, 35 people. And it was just exciting to see all the people that had taken time out of their day to come out and greet the president. A lot of waves, a lot of signs, and the president tried as much as he could to say hello to as many people as he had the opportunity to.
Certainly recognize that part of Findlay, but I've not seen it from that vantage point for a long, long time. Kind of interesting to watch Findlay roll by from that perspective.
And of course, all of our local authorities, I noticed, were at the crossings, with a parked car for the safety of the president and to, keep the people at a safe distance away from the railroad. And we're off to Bowling Green. And up in Bowling Green, TV47's Nancy Moore and crew were up there to take a closer look at the president's visit.
All right, so a long and busy day for a lot of people. Nancy is standing by, and shall we go to that view right now? Let's take a look at our Bowling Green coverage right now.
It may be hard to beat Arlington and Findlay's enthusiasm and down-home charm, but Bowling Green put its best foot forward on Saturday.
What a tremendous day for Bowling Green, for Wood County, and all of Northwest Ohio.
It was just after 5 when the president, his wife Barbara, and other dignitaries rolled into BG, greeted by a thunderous welcome from the crowd. Bush was expected to speak at 4:15, but the delay only gave his supporters time to rev up for his grand appearance. 25,000 people were on hand to cheer the president on. Skies were overcast, and Mrs. Bush pulled out her umbrella when raindrops began falling. But the wet weather did little to dampen anyone's spirits. The president started his speech off on the right note by mentioning the Bowling Green Falcons' victory over East Carolina.
You know, we weren't tuned in, so who won the football game? Just kidding. Well done.
And then it was on to real political business. When the president spotted a Clinton supporter dressed as a chicken, Bush did his best to turn the tables on the Chicken George controversy. As you might know, the president has been criticized for ducking debates with Bill Clinton. Well, Bush didn't duck this opportunity to jab his opponent.
I'm not sure if that chicken is from Oxford, England, or if he's the one that dumps that fecal coliform bacteria into the Arkansas River.
The mudslinging didn't end there. The president told the crowd that Clinton has been seeking advice from the rock group U2.
He was in Hollywood seeking foreign policy advice from the rock group U2. Now, understand I have nothing against U2. You may not know this, but they try to call me at the White House every night during the concert. By the next time we face a foreign policy crisis, I will work with John Major and Boris Yeltsin, and Bill Clinton can consult Boy George. I'll stay with the experts.
The crowd was an easy one for the president. The city of Bowling Green is vastly Republican, and many compliments were paid to Bush by young and old alike.
I thought it was great. It was a nice opportunity to see President Bush up close, and it was really exciting.
Do you think that he fulfilled or has fulfilled everybody's expectations?
Yes, I think he's done a lot of good things, and I think he'll do a lot of good things in the years to come.
So are you saying that you think he's going to make it 4 more years?
I think he probably will, yes.
What can you say you like about him?
His attitude about things.
What'd you like most about today?
All the Secret Service people around, and how he came on train.
A visit by the president is definitely something special for any city, but not everyone was impressed by the president or this rally.
I wanted some answers on why there's no debate going on for the public to hear the issues.
What's your biggest beef, so to speak, with Bush right now?
That the war in Kuwait did no good, and it's being beefed up as a great victory for him. Saddam's still in power. People have no civil rights in Kuwait, and the environment and education, they're all hurting real bad in the country right now.
Are you at all impressed with Bush?
Absolutely not.
No. What's the biggest problem you have with him and his philosophies?
Him and his philosophy in the GOP platform is basically really against the civil rights as far as homosexuals, the abortion issue, things like that. And plus the economy has been on a downhill climb for so long, and it has to be stopped.
Before the president and first lady said their final goodbyes and shook the last hand, one woman and her son got the rare opportunity to climb aboard the train and talk with the Bushes. I spoke with them after the rally and found out why they were given such special treatment.
Barbara Bush and I grew up together from childhood through to marriage, and she married President Bush, and I married somebody else, and we both, I know all of her family, and they're a fabulously warm, wonderful group of people, as are the Bush family, and I know all of that family because I went to school with President Bush's sister, so I feel very connected to them all, and they're very loyal friends is what it boils down to. And when she saw me, she went, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm here to visit my son, who is a senior at Bowling Green," and obviously, the rest I was here certainly to see her. I mean, it just happened. I was very fortunate to be here at this time.
Great experience for you.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard a lot about him, so it was really neat to finally meet him. So
What did you say on the train? What were the...
He didn't...
I just said it was, nice to meet you and good luck on your trip. And
He was cute because she told him that she had seen me, and he turned around and said, "Hi, Shirley," and then he turned around and said, "Hi, Shirley," again. And when I went up to hug her on the train, he was inside, and he beckoned me to come in and shook hands and said, "So it's really nice, great to see you." I mean,
Are you still in awe even though you have connections to them?
I'm not in awe of them ever. I have tremendous respect for both of them, and I honor them as human beings, and I just am very proud to know them and feel that, I just am lucky.
Do you think that he's going to have 4 more years?
I believe so. I'm just not looking good right now, but I think he'll pull it through in the
We
end.
sure hope so.
Yeah, it's a good showing today, though.
It wasn't the day, it was marvelous.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, there was such enthusiasm. You could feel the electricity in the air. And when the train came in, the people that were looking out, all the various people, their eyes were just, when they saw the crowds, you could see them get all excited. It was really nice, yeah.
How about the uniform?
Oh. This is how well I guess I know Barbara Bush, or when I think about her as a young person. We used to go to the movies on Saturday afternoon in a group. A bunch of us would go, and we were all sitting there watching the movies, and I remember one time looking over and Barbara's knitting away, and I said, "Barbara, what on earth are you doing, knitting in the movies? You're going to drop all the stitches, it's going to be a mess." And she said, "Never fear." And by golly, at the end of the movie, I looked, she hadn't dropped one stitch. That's how cool she is. She knows what she's doing.
Incidentally, Saturday's visit was the first to Bowling Green by George Bush as president. He did make a stop there for a private fundraiser during his 1988 campaign for the White House. For TV47, I'm Dancy Moore.
What a wonderful day from start to finish. Have you ever thought of how much money you would make if you manufactured red, white, and blue balloons? Can you imagine?
Or flags.
Or flags. How many thousands of balloons were launched into the air? What a day it was. Incredible day. You, of course, almost saw the whole route. You did see the whole route. You got off the train in Bowling Green, but you started out in Marysville, Ohio in the morning. In the morning. And you ended up in the late afternoon in Bowling Green. Let's go back and kind of talk about it.
Okay.
I would have to think that even to people who see the president on a regular basis, now I'm saying a regular basis being people who see him maybe once a month, twice a month, the thrill never goes away. That's what I think. How was it for you? You saw the president up close, spent most of the day on the train. Did you ever lose that feeling of excitement?
No, Mike, I have not lost that feeling yet, and like I said earlier, it's probably something I will never forget. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and like I said in the live coverage, I would love to do it again. I don't know if I'll ever be afforded the opportunity, but I'm sure even for Debbie Homan, TV47's videographer, who did a wonderful job of getting the up-close and personal video of the president and his wife. She actually was, 2 inches from them, and the president patted Debbie on the back and spoke to her about Findlay, and it was just a wonderful experience. Like you just said, it did start in Marysville, Ohio, very early in the morning. We continued through Kenton and then Arlington, of course, up to Findlay and Bowling Green. And I do know that through the president's itinerary, he had 5 more cities to go through in Michigan, and their trip concluded Sunday evening, and they flew back, I think, on Air Force One to the White House. So they were home by 6:30. But I can say one thing: we were exhausted by Bowling Green. And the president must have so much stamina because he still had to finish Saturday night and then Sunday. But a wonderful visit, and it's just a wonderful opportunity.
We saw him several weeks ago when he came to Tall Timbers. Toward the end of the day, he had already been several places, and we were told by several people the president looked very tired coming off the helicopter. When he got into the building at Tall Timbers and saw the crowd, he immediately blossomed. I think that the adrenaline has to start pumping every stop he makes, particularly later in the day, longer in the campaign.
That's right. He was so radiant the whole day, and you could tell it was very genuine. And it was what you see is what you get. This is President George Bush and his wife, and she wanted to make so many more stops. We went past railroad crossings in the countryside, the heartland of Ohio, but she just couldn't, you know, according to the White House staff. But it was just so nice to see that they were down to earth, real people, very genuine, and really wanted to meet the people of Ohio.
Mm-hmm. I must remind people of one thing before we continue talking, because if I don't, I'm going to forget this at the end. For those of you who don't read credits, please do tonight. I'm the type of person, at the end of every movie, I'll sit in the theater until the lights come up, reading all the names. People I'll never meet in my life, I've never met. These, in many cases, are people you have met, and a lot of people have spent a lot of time and put in a lot of talent, putting this all together. Not only the presidential visit, but this particular program, which was put together in almost record time. Please read the credits. A lot of people deserve a big pat on the back. Give them one wherever you happen to be sitting. They'll feel it, believe me.
And working on a Saturday was a pleasure. I don't think one TV47 employee minded one bit. The excitement in the station all week as we geared up for the big day to cover the president's visit was just tremendous. And we had so many crews. Let's count them. We had Debbie and I, a crew on the train. We had a crew in Arlington at, 6:30 in the morning? Mm-hmm. Maybe even 2 crews in Arlington, because we had a live crew and then the crew taping interviews. We had a crew in Findlay, and of course we did have a crew for the last stop in Northwest Ohio in Bowling Green, and we can just easily say what a wonderful job all of the TV47 employees did. It doesn't take just 2 people, it takes a team effort to bring this type of program to the viewers of Findlay and Hancock County.
And of course we had our crew back, and you may have mentioned them, and I may have missed it, but our crew back here in the studio.
That's right, that is another crew.
Taking that live coverage, which turned out to be beautiful. I did not have a monitor at Arlington and could not see until I got back to the studio what a wonderful job they did. Just a great, great shot there, as well as every stop on the trip. That picture kind of sums it up, and we could go on with 4 more million words. And you and I, knowing us, probably could. Probably 8 million more words. But these pictures kind of tell the whole story of the president's mood, of what it felt like to be on that back platform of that train. Again, I'm amazed by that shot.
That's my favorite shot right here. You just feel so close, and she's just so friendly and kind, and you feel like you just go up and give her a big bear hug like she's your favorite grandma.
Don't ever try it, folks, because the Secret Service does not take lightly to that at all. That is just amazing.
There were so many people on both sides of the train at that point when they were passing through Kenton on the way to Arlington that Mrs. Bush said at one point, well, honey, I don't know which side to go to. And then you could hear the Secret Service saying, and they always call him by sir, sir, there's over 500 people on this side. And they felt really pulled because they really wanted to see everyone. They weren't, favoring any certain area of Ohio.
That right there, too, not only shows the president and the first lady up very close, but shows the mood of the crowd, the size of the crowd, and just how it feels to be on that train once again. That'll be a wonderful experience for you, and we do hope that it is repeated for you.
Oh, I hope so. I had the best time, and it was just wonderful that we could. I'm excited that we had this special 2-hour program, because most people don't get the opportunity to see this much video, which that is the sole purpose why we did this show tonight, so that the viewers of you at home could see a lot of the video that's cut down for the news.
Mm-hmm. That's about it. I don't know what else to say. We have said it all. Wonderful visit. Great job by everybody. Let's take a little bit of a rest and wait for the next visit of the president. Good to be with you again tonight.
Great to be with you, Mike. I'm sure I'll probably see you in the morning.
I hope so. Thanks for being with us. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Again, please read the credits. These people who worked on this show did a magnificent job. From Misty and me, a big pat on the back. Thanks again. So long.
Good night.
This portion of Spirit of America 92, President Bush Visits Ohio, has been brought to you by Magic Auto Glass and Trim, 622 East Sandusky in Findlay.